Hi everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to be bringing you another one of my 5 book recommendation videos, and today we're going to be talking all about non-fiction. So far in this little series I've got going on here on my channel, I've given 5 book recommendations for literary fiction, classics, fantasy, historical fiction, poetry, BAME and LGBTQIA+ as well. So if you're interested in any of those, I will leave the link to the playlist in which they're all in, so you can go and check them out after this video. Hello. Bye. So the first non-fiction book that I'm going to recommend for you today is a memoir, and that is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. So this is a non-fiction book that I think everyone should read. Whether you've read a lot of non-fiction in the past or you consider yourself a fan of non-fiction or not, I'm pretty sure you'll find something to like in this. So Trevor Noah is a South African man who was literally born a crime because he was born to a black mother and a white father during the apartheid. So in this book, Trevor Noah just tells us about some of the stories from his childhood while he was growing up in this time, and about some of the consequent discrimination and racism he faced. Trevor Noah is absolutely fantastic, and the insight we're allowed into his childhood is just amazing. Throughout the book we get to learn about the first few years of his life in which he was kept inside. We get to learn about him being thrown out of a moving car in an attempted kidnapping. We learn about his dating difficulties in high school and the violence that he ends up getting involved with. But throughout the book we also consistently get to learn about his unconditionally loving relationship with his fearless kick-ass mother, which is such a highlight. This book has the perfect balance of being serious and informative, really well depicting this really terrible time in South African history, whilst also being absolutely hilarious. Some of the stories in this book are so searingly funny. Trevor Noah has such a gift. This is probably the funniest thing I've ever read. I would also highly recommend listening to the audiobook of this memoir. That's how I consumed it, and I really loved it. Trevor Noah reads it himself and his voice just comes through so great. It was just such a joy to listen to, and you will laugh multiple times. I just think this book is such a great and entertaining way to get some good non-fiction into your reading life, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. The next book that I'm going to recommend is a collection of essays, and that is Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. In these essays, Roxane Gay discusses culture from the past few years and also what feminism is today, and she also discusses her personal experiences as a woman of colour and a feminist. I think this is a great collection of essays in the kind of cultural criticism realm. It has a lot of really interesting and important themes that are relevant today. It has humour and anger and no shortage of optimism, and I think the overall messages and tone of this collection is really strong and really positive. The strongest aspect of this collection for me was the emphasis that Roxane Gay puts on the idea that she is a flawed feminist. So Roxane Gay is a woman who goes against a lot of the typically accepted feminist ideology, but nevertheless she deeply cares about feminist causes. And the point is that this is okay. So Roxane Gay is aware that she is self-contradictory in many ways. She says that she loves rap music, but often she finds it really offensive and degrading towards women. She says that she shaves her body, but she speaks openly about the fact that she hates the unrealistic beauty expectations that are placed on women. But the point is that this doesn't mean she can't be a feminist. I think what Roxane Gay is trying to get at here is she's trying to get rid of this idea of there being one essential feminism, and if you care about the feminist cause, then you can identify as a feminist. Another strength of this collection is that Roxane Gay discusses one of the large issues with feminism today, in that it drastically underrepresents black, trans and queer women, and I found this to be really salient and a really striking point. And she also puts in a few of her own kind of personal examples and struggles that she's had with this, which I thought made the collection all the better. In this collection, Roxane Gay comes across as very intelligent and blunt and funny and often quite relatable, and while there were definitely sections in here that I didn't love as much as others, I definitely think it's worth a read. The next book that I'm going to recommend in this video is another memoir, and this is my favourite non-fiction book ever, and that is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. Paul Kalanithi was a 36-year-old neurosurgeon when he was diagnosed with inoperable lung cancer. So in this memoir we get to see Paul's transition from being the doctor to being the patient himself and all that that entails, and we also get to see him kind of battling with the question of what makes his life meaningful in the face of death. This is one of the most intelligent and touching books I have ever read, and to have both of those things in equal measure is pretty amazing. So we start this book by learning about Paul Kalanithi as a really intelligent young man who loves biology and literature and morality. And throughout his life, he's constantly looking into all of these disciplines to see what they can jointly say about what makes life meaningful. Throughout this memoir, we are also allowed a really deep insight into Paul's personal life. So he lets us see how the cancer has had an effect on his physical and intellectual and emotional self. And he's also really open about how the cancer affects his marriage and other relationships that he holds in his life with family and friends. This book is truly inspiring. Paul Kalanithi is so positive all the way through. There is no hint of self-pity or exaggeration at any point in this book. And it's just so thought-provoking and raw and ultimately really positive. Paul Kalanithi was clearly a very thoughtful and intelligent and compassionate man, and I would highly recommend his story to anyone. It definitely had a great impact on me. The next book that I'm going to recommend today is Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. So this book is an account of what meat is, where it comes from, how it's produced, and what the social, economic and environmental effects of producing and consuming meat are. So this book actually came about because Jonathan Safran Foer decided to do some research into what meat was on his own for personal reasons. Him and his wife were having a baby and he wanted to know what he was going to be feeding his child, basically. So he started looking into it himself, and then after 3 years, I think, of frankly shocking research, he decided to write this book. The information in this book is enlightening and definitely very disturbing. I honestly think there's information in this book that everyone should be aware of, whether you're a meat eater or vegetarian or vegan, whatever. I think we all have a duty to learn about animal agriculture, just because it is such a huge thing in the world we live in. It's massive and it has such an impact on so many different things, not only the treatment of animals, but also global warming and human health. This book isn't a pushy advocate of vegetarianism. I know it probably sounds like it is, but I didn't find it to be that way when I read it. The book is comprised of different facts and figures. There's accounts of when Jonathan Safran Foer visited different family farms and factory farms, and there's copies of letters and emails from animal activists and farmers themselves. And overall, I just felt like it built up quite a full picture of the process of producing meat, and it wasn't really biased one way or the other. I mean, Jonathan Safran Foer was a meat eater when he undertook this endeavour, and he says openly that he loves meat. So I doubt he went into this wanting to find out terrible things about the animal agriculture industry. This book is also very well written, it's very accessible and clear, and it's also quite humorous at points too. Jonathan Safran Foer has a really dry sense of humour that I really enjoy, so this is a good one. And the final book that I'm going to recommend for you today is South of Forgiveness by Thordis Elva and Tom Stranger. So this book tells the true story of a rape that occurred in the 1990s in Iceland, and while it is primarily written by the victim Thordis Elva, it is also in part written by Tom Stranger, who was the perpetrator. So this is a collaboration between both parties who, many years after the event took place, decided to meet up and write this book, and both parties are equally committed to exploring what happened and adding to the much needed discussion around sexual violence. So this book traces the unimaginably difficult journey of both of these people, especially Thordis, of course, from when they were 16 and in a relationship and Tom raped Thordis while they were drunk, to when they started emailing each other years later, to when they decided to meet up and discuss the darkest night of both of their lives and decide how to move forward. Getting an insight into Tom's perspective is really interesting in this book. You get to read some of his diary and you get to learn about how the act he performed when he was 17 has completely ruined and haunts his life now. He's completely remorseful for what he's done and he's taken full responsibility for it. And in a way, his journey to being forgiven is actually harder for him in some ways than Thordis's journey to forgiving him, because Thordis wants to forgive Tom and move forward with her life, but Tom feels as though he will never deserve her forgiveness. And of course, this book is not just about the personal experiences of Thordis and Tom, it also discusses more widely the issues of rape culture and date rape specifically. And I think this discussion of rape within a relationship is so important because it is so prevalent and it isn't discussed nearly as often as it should be. And it isn't even really thought of when you say rape. That isn't really what comes to mind. Because this book contains really powerful insights into both the victims and the rapist's view, it is of course really difficult to read at times. It's very emotional, but I do think it is really important and really impactful. So if you can pick this book up without it affecting you too much, then I definitely think it's it's worth it. So those were 5 of my non-fiction recommendations, guys. I would love to know if you've read any of them and what you thought of them, or if you have any non-fiction recommendations for me. Non-fiction isn't really something I read as much as I should or I want to, so I'm definitely always looking for new recommendations to try out. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you're all well, and I will see you next week with my next video. Bye, everyone.